This lush area you see behind me is mostly regrowth because at one point all of it had been cleared except for a few small wooded areas ranging in size from groves of just a few trees to forest patches that were at most several hectares in size. During the past century, the abandonment of agriculture and the protection of the central catchment area forests led to the recolonization of the open spaces by hardy pioneer plants, what we call secondary forests. The leftover primary forest patches are still there, but the spaces between them have been filled by secondary forest regrowth. You can spot the old primary forests from a distance by their greater height and their uneven canopy. Now, anytime a natural habitat is reduced in area and becomes isolated, that area is referred to by ecologists as a fragment. The Bukit-Timah Nature Reserve is perhaps our best-known forest fragment. It is completely surrounded on all sides by housing developments or roads and represents a pocket of what was once a much larger area of primary forest. If you stop to think about it, habitat fragments are like islands, except instead of being surrounded by ocean, they're surrounded by a sea of development and agricultural land. 40 years ago, the renowned ecologists Robert MacArthur and Edward Wilson published an influential book called The Theory of Island Biogeography. In it, they showed that all else being equal, the larger an island, the greater number of species it should contain. MacArthur and Wilson's theory suggested that if the conservation area drops below a certain threshold size, one can expect the species diversity to be greatly reduced over time. They found that fragments suffered a loss of diversity and a decrease in the number of large trees, especially at the edges. The physical impact of wind and its drying influence are called edge effects, and they result not only in a loss of big trees, but also the displacement of animals and an increased growth of light-loving, fast-growing vines, what we call lianas. Now, the effects are more severe the smaller the fragment. We're now on Mandai Road. Until recently, forests on either side of this road were connected until the rerouting of the road separated them. The patch of forest to my right is a linear, narrow strip with a long edge relative to its surface area. The fact that there are a number of dead trees standing suggests that this area has suffered from edge effects in the past. Many of our forest areas also suffer from the enhanced growth of climbing plants, such as this species known as smilax. Smilax, if left unchecked, can overtop trees and prevent light from reaching them with adverse effects. In Singapore, something has been done to counteract the impact of fragmentation. Take, for example, the species-rich primary forest fragment along Lornie Road. In the early 1990s, the forest edge along Lornie Road was smothered by smilax vines. The Nature Reserve's management of N Parks began an intensive program of smilax removal about 12 years ago and managed to eradicate them. They also embarked on a forest restoration program that included planting fast-growing trees along the road, providing a screen that buffered and protected the forest from the effects of wind. Today, you wouldn't be able to tell by looking at that forest behind me that until recently it had been badly affected. Many species of animals were lost in the 1800s because the forests were greatly reduced in size and the remaining fragments were too isolated from each other. Individually, none of these fragments could support the full range of Singapore's native flora and fauna. Today, however, they're interconnected by the secondary forests of the Central Catchment Nature Reserve. This suggests that our forests may have the potential to house more species of plants and animals than they've had in the past because today we have a larger contiguous forested area than we've had in over 100 years. Now, if Singapore's experience in the past could be a foreshadowing of what might happen to Southeast Asia's biodiversity if habitat loss and fragmentation continues unchecked, then Singapore's current, happier situation could be a glimpse into a different kind of future for our region's natural heritage. There's one final missing ingredient, and that's you and me. Contrary to popular belief, the individual is not powerless to help turn the tide of habitat and species loss. What we do as consumers, investors, tourists, and concerned citizens can and does make a difference. We just need the will and the wisdom to achieve it.